Thanks, Lascia and Corla. So Amendment 3 and 12 are very similar, and it's in relation to the structural inequalities that exist in the Irish workplace, and I strongly believe that we need to provide for a gender breakdown of full-time and part-time employees and those working on flexible working arrangements. And this amendment allows for the additional reporting information to be provided for by employers, which I think is really important, and I think when we have the opportunity to do this, we should. And then just in relation to Amendment 12, as we're discussing it together, this amendment seeks to strengthen the legislation to ensure that the provision for data collection for part-time, full-time and those on flexible working hours is gathered and strengthened. And as I just said, I think when we have the opportunity to do this, we should really take that opportunity. Thanks, Lascia and Corla.
Minister.
Thank you very much, Lascia and Corla, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak on this significant piece of legislation, and just to recognise the work my predecessor, Deputy David Staunton, did in bringing the legislation this far. Thanks to Deputy Funchion for her amendment. The proposed amendment is seeking to provide for a gender breakdown of various categories of employees. However, I have real concerns that providing that particular type of breakdown may lead to employees being easily individually identifiable within individual workplaces, particularly within smaller workplaces. And I believe that the purpose of the amendment being proposed by the deputy would potentially be at odds with Section 20A(8), which set out under Section 2 of the bill, which provides that regulations may prescribe measures to be taken by the employer or the person who has access to the information to ensure that personal data has undergone pseudonymisation before or when it is released. So pseudonymisation has the meaning assigned to it by Article 4 of the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, and it means the processing of personal data in such a manner that the personal data can no longer be attributed to a specific data subject without the use of additional information, provided that such additional information is kept separately and is subject to technical and organisational measures to ensure that the personal data are not attributed to an identified or identifiable natural person. So in a situation where there are a small number of one category of persons, it's very likely that the publication of this information as being proposed in this amendment would make those people individually identifiable. Now, I understand that the Deputy is concerned that women may make up the majority of part-time workers and this can make them lower paid. However, there are measures proposed in the legislation that will allow us to delve into the information that is provided by each company, the information about the gender pay gap, which is the basis of what this bill is about. So I would draw the House's attention to Section 20A(9), and that provides that regulations may be made requiring publication of the percentage of each pay quartile, which are men and who are women. So for example, what percentage of the most highly hourly paid 25% of employees are men or women? And this is less likely, this sort of information here is less likely to identify individuals, but it does provide a more detailed, a more texturized level of background information regarding the origin of a gender pay gap within a particular employer. So I think that's a better way to go. I think that's the way the bill proposes to go, and I think it avoids that information, that potential where you have a small employer and where the categorization being proposed in this particular amendment could actually give rise to the singling out, the identification of certain individuals, and therefore their pay information would become known. Thanks very much, Lascia and Corla.
Thanks, Lascia and Corla. I would respectfully disagree with the Minister. The irony of it is the reason for this legislation is already women are discriminated in the workplace in very many workplaces. You know, a lot of people don't actually believe in 2021 it's still happening, but there is a huge amount of workplaces where a man and a woman doing the exact same job and the woman is being paid less. So they're already being discriminated against. So I don't think that this would lead to somehow, further discrimination by the fact that they'd be identified by gender. It's already happening. And I think it just gives us the opportunity to actually have that data just for further research, for further possible legislation. I just think it's a missed opportunity by not accepting the amendment. Thanks, Lascan Carla.
Minister.
Thanks very much. Well, absolutely, we accept that there is a gender pay gap. And that's why we're bringing forward this legislation. So there's no question about that. And I think the most recent Eurostat figure suggests it's 14.4% here in Ireland, and that's not acceptable. And that's what this legislation is designed to act to address. This legislation isn't going to solve it all. I think we all accept that, but I think it, for the first time, will bring a structured and steady flow of information regarding what's happening in individual employers. And just to clarify, I'm not suggesting that the amendment proposed by Deputy Funchion is going to bring in additional discrimination, not suggesting that at all, but I am saying that by bringing down the categorisation under which each individual employer has to report to very small categories within a workplace, it does risk that individual employees may be identified, and the whole tenor of this legislation is not to allow individual employees be singled out, and that's my concern with the amendment being put forward here. But I do believe that the additional pieces of information in terms of what creates the gender pay gap in a particular workplace can be teased out through some of the other reporting requirements that are set out in the legislation.
Cairns, you want